So before we go any further, I thought it'd be just useful to go through the 4 key principles that we go through at Medics in Control, because it's really interesting how so many of us are living a life in a way that's reactive. And for us to start regaining control over our lives, over our careers, then we need to start becoming more intentional about how we spend our time. So Fanny and I have been working on these areas. We have a Doctor's Breakthrough program which explore this in a lot more detail, but I wanted to use this video to go through the 4 key areas and why they're important. So let's start off with direction. So this is life direction and this is career direction. And if you think about it, you start medical training and you go through your resident doctor period and you're training all the way up to becoming a GP or consultant. And during that training time, your pathway is pretty much already laid out in front of you. So you have to jump through the hoops, you have to go through exams, you have to go through certain rotations, get your competencies, etc. And that then leads you to the path of either a GP or a consultant. But let's supposing you now get to your GP, you get to consultant, what is then next? And this is the interesting thing here, because once you get senior, there's nothing more that's laying out in front of you. And you have to then start thinking about designing your own path. Now, the traditional areas of medicine are either going to be hospital management or medical education or research. But a lot of them do involve a lot of politics, a lot of systems and processes and a lot of bureaucracy. And what then happens is that a lot of people spend more and more of their time doing low value tasks, which is not only frustrating, but doesn't relate to any form of direction or personal growth. So the first thing we need to do when we're looking at developing ourselves is starting to think about what is important to us, what's going to move us forward, and where do we want to be. Once we have that, the second thing we need to think about is our mindset. Where you are in your life at the moment, where you are in your career is the result of literally thousands of decisions that you make on a day-to-day basis. And that leads to where you are at the moment. Now, mindset's a really interesting topic because our thoughts relate to our feelings, and our feelings then relate to either our actions or inactions. And so many times we have self-limiting beliefs in medicine, which often stop us from doing what needs to be done to move us forward. So you may have heard of these narratives. These are common. So for example, the fear of failure, the fear of being judged negatively by other people, or the thoughts and feeling that I'm just not good enough or I'm not qualified enough to do whatever needs to be done. And so often that causes either the resistance and inaction, so you're not doing anything at all, or procrastination, where you think to yourself, I'm going to think about it and I'll wait until the time's right. And all you're doing there potentially is procrastinating and stopping yourself from doing what you need to do to bring you forward. So mindset is a really important issue. The third principle that we talk about is money. Now, this is really interesting because money is so often a taboo subject in medicine. So often we feel uncomfortable talking about money. And I've even had people say to me, what you're doing at Medics in Control is great. Why do you have to spoil it by talking about money? But here's the thing. When we spend our time, we're spending our time in one of two ways. We're spending our time on things that either we have to do to pay the bills, or we're spending our time on things that we want to do, which is usually when we're enjoying ourselves, when we're following our hobbies or interests or spending time with our family. These are enjoyable things that we want to do. And how many times and how often have we had to put the things that we want to do on hold because of our medical career? Now, let's suppose we become financially free and financially independent, and money is no longer a driver in how we spend our time, we're then completely free to choose exactly how we spend our time. So at Medicine Control, what we say is that we can't ignore money. What we really want to do is we want to be starting to think about really tapping into our finances and starting a journey that grows our wealth and leads us towards financial independence and financial freedom so that we are free to choose exactly how we spend our time. Now, the fourth principle is time itself, and time is our most important asset. And if you think about it, we are born into this world pretty much the same, and where you are in your life is determined by exactly what you've done in the time you've spent between the time that you were born to now. And that's led to where you've got to, where you've got to. So the reason why time is important is because we can spend our time in one of two ways. We can spend our time on the things that we're going to do to drive us and to move us closer towards our goals, or we're just going to fritter time away. And when you look at the NHS, and I talked about those low-value tasks before, if we are spending more of our time either on low-value tasks, which are not going to move the needle in our lives, or we are spending time because we're engaging in things which is easy to do, such as doom scrolling on social media or binge watching on Netflix, for example, then are we using time in the best possible way? So the fourth principle is using time in a way that's going to move us forward. In other words, traction moving towards our goals and less time in distraction, which is essentially time wasted. And that leads very nicely on to 20 minutes a day. And 20 minutes a day has been proven, in my experience and from lots of people I've spoken to actually work. So this is 20 minutes a day spent on your own personal development, where the time is blocked in and you're using that 20 minutes a day in each of those four areas. And evidence shows that if you do this on a daily and consistent basis, that's where you're compounding, that's where you're forming healthy daily habits, and that's where momentum builds. And we say 20 minutes a day because we recognize that doctors are headspace poor and are time poor. But no matter what the circumstances or how busy life is, we should be able to fit in that 20 minutes a day. So there you have it. Direction, mindset, financial growth, and time mastery using a 20-minute a day principle. So hopefully you resonate with this. And if you do, my invitation to you now is to go ahead and complete the 2-minute scorecard, because the scorecard is the first starting point and it gives a really great snapshot as to where you are in those four areas and an indication of where best place to start for you. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to supporting you on your ongoing personal development journey.